This is Gisborne, headquarters of the Poverty Bay Catchment Board. Much produce is shipped from wharves on the Waimata River, for this is the port and agricultural center of a warm and prosperous area. Southwest of the Waimata, another river, the Waipawa, also passes near the town, flowing to the sea round the end of a long sandspit. Beyond Waipawa's mouth is seen young Nick's Head, Captain Cook's New Zealand landfall. Here at the river mouth he made his first landing, and finding the sandspit area but a poor place after Tahiti, bestowed the name Poverty Bay. Upriver, no one could name this district after poverty. Here are rich, fat lamb farms on some of the most productive acreage in the country. A great concern of the Catchment Board is to protect these areas from flood by river control and by the prevention of high country erosion. Maize is a crop for which the district is well known. In many places, banks are stabilized by well-established growth of willows. But there are also places where masses of debris brought down from the hills are not yet under control. The district is subject to periodic heavy rainstorms, and in flood time, the local papa clay moves downstream in vast quantities. When floods come down, they can be tearing and dangerous. It's bad enough that stock and crops should be drowned, but there's also more permanent damage to the valley land itself. And valley farmers know that every drop of water that flows downriver in flood time is a drop that has run off all too quickly from somebody's farm in the hills. The worst floods come when flood peaks of several tributaries chance to coincide in the main stream. When floods are high, they often damage river control work such as the protective groins along the Waipawa. Floods mean that much of the initial work of the Catchment Board has to be done again. When heavy rains strike these soft hills, new debris dams are sometimes broken, the willows in their structure not having had time enough to build a strong network of roots. For Catchment Board and farmer alike, when floods subside, there's stock taking to be done, a new start to be made. Sheep are weighed down by muddy fleeces and the grazing spoilt, so that stock have to be moved elsewhere to find feed. What used to be property somewhere upstream has become litter nearer the sea, the cost of clearing it away a figure to be added to the cost of its loss. When flood peaks in both Gisborne's rivers come down at the same time, the airport becomes flooded, covered with so much mud that it has to be worked up and resown. Everything from flying to foot traffic is disorganized by floods. When floods go down, thousands of pounds worth of damage is reported. But as well as immediate loss, there is loss of production to consider, and as well as loss of production, the loss of hope in the good plains farmer when he finds how easily water from the hills can take a season's profits down the drain, or set back all his improvements. The waters subside, leaving their mark on hedges, paddocks, and buildings. Some marks of flood are of no importance, some soon put right. Often, damage to fertile soil is the worst of the disaster. These willows are holding back flood debris on what used to be good maize land before the flood of 1948. Here the good soil has been deeply buried, and it will be many years before a comparable topsoil is established. Willows are here making a good job of strengthening a river bank. And here an attempt is made to hold with willows a bank of debris from a recent flood, and so keep it from moving on downstream next time and doing more damage. Success will depend on timing, on whether the new willows will have grown enough before the next flood comes. The Catchment Board's long-term problem in Poverty Bay, as in most districts, is the high country with its slips, gullies and earth flows. Much of the country is soft puffer clay, and gullies seem able to cut down indefinitely without being checked by hard rock. Excessive bush clearing followed by hard grazing is probably the basic cause of the trouble, for these hills with but little hard rock in them are dependent for stability on a year-round cover of vegetation. Part of the importance of trees in erosion control is that they are out of reach of stock and so immune from overgrazing. Down in the creek beds, willow roots strengthen the banks. Where a steep creek is very unstable, methods are being tried of lining the bed with scrub to protect the soil for a year or two while the willows spread their roots. Debris dams built of willow poles, wire netting and Manuka fascines are structures often needed to stem gullying in this district. Works like these, intended to prevent silting of the main rivers, are carried out by the farmers with technical guidance from the board's staff and with a cash subsidy from the board. This system, by which the Catchment Board gets work done without employing labor directly, is a new departure in local body works administration. Debris dams need to be aided by tree planting, pest control and improved grass cover on the slopes above them. Experience has shown that for successful control of erosion, many concerted methods must be used. Willows are incorporated in all works designed to control gullies or streams, because, given time, willow will produce a root mattress capable of strong resistance to the scarring effects of water. Here are willows which have been controlling a small creek for nearly 30 years, maintaining in its bed a living lining which is self-renewing and so more lasting than concrete. There are numerous types of willow which can be used for this work, and it would be better for plantations to be more varied. The roots line the water channel with a thick and constantly renewed network of fibers. Willows and poplars provide shade for stock in summer, and since they are bare in winter, do not greatly reduce grazing capacity. Like the native trees, these exotics need protection from opossums. Opossum hunters are employed directly by the board. Their object is not pelts, but pest destruction. The muddiness of the creek shows there's much need for soil conservation measures in this valley. When the pests have been destroyed, poplars can be planted at key points on slipping hillsides. It's fortunate for conservationists that the right time of year for tree planting, winter and early spring, is a time at which seasonal labor is usually short of employment. Note the signs on the hilltops that this country was in tall bush not so very long ago. For poplar and willow cuttings, tall poles are used, tall enough for their tops to sprout well out of reach of stock. The pines will in time prevent further slipping on these hillsides and later still be a source of valuable timber. Other saleable timber trees are also being planted. In the Catchment Board's tree nursery, types of poplar are raised which are suitable for box making. As a result of experience, trees are not now planted until pests have been exterminated. Pest extermination and limitation of grazing, tree planting and gully control are all essential steps in rebuilding back areas made desolate by past mistakes. The engineers, tree planters and hunters in such special areas are housed in camps operated by the Soil Conservation Council. This one is at Tiwararoa. It can easily be realized that a heavy downpour of rain on such a vast denuded area will very soon cause the creeks to swell. The immediate running off of rain from such bare slopes makes a rapid contribution to bring rivers to flood levels. These places are dangerous sources of debris, which causes raising of river beds. Gradually, the area is being brought under control. The dams are designed to trap as much debris as possible. Here, debris from a side valley is filling into the main creek. Sometimes multiple dams are needed, and always dams must be reinforced by other conservation measures. Most Poverty Bay hill soil is very fertile, but it rests on a soft subsoil. If the cover of vegetation is opened up by fire or pests or excessive grazing, the heavy rains soon cause the soil to move, sometimes in large earth flows. This land has obviously deteriorated and does not look too productive. In this case, the cause may be nothing but excessive grazing. Now compare this property with the one across the road. The cause of the difference is that this one has been completely closed to stock for a period of 2 years. In 2 years, thanks to a fertile subsoil, the area has come back unaided into first-class condition and is likely to remain so if heavy grazing in winter is avoided. The long grass is an excellent check on runoff and scouring by water. Now compare again the property closed for 2 years with the one back across the road, which has been heavily and continuously grazed and so easily suffered damage in recent heavy rains. The exposed subsoil is a fertile one, so a similar restoration is possible. Restoring stability to the Poverty Bay backcountry will increase its productivity. Over some vast areas, better control of grazing and of pests is needed. Gradually, this stricken look should disappear from the Poverty Bay scene and be replaced by a highly productive landscape with continuous cover of grass holding the soil, helped by trees on banks and steep places. The work of the board in restoring the back country is vital to permanent river control on the plain. As cover is restored, flooding rivers will rise more slowly and the flow of debris decrease. Restoration of stability by concerted measures applied on both hills and flats should bring permanent high productivity to plains and high country alike.